Hello, everybody. Hope everybody had a great week last week. Mark, you want me to start with a few comments?
Yes, sir. Yep, go right ahead.
Yes, really proud of the guys for their win over Wake Forest. Wake had won 4 games in a row, and it was the end of a brutal stretch with us for not only 7 straight games, but for 4 games with rivals, which is the first time it ever happened in our school's history. And I thought the guys tried hard in each of those 4 games and only came up short at Virginia. So winning the 3 in-state games is important. It does help your fan base because they get bragging rights for a year. It does help recruiting, even though I don't think it changes recruiting because a lot of young people are making decisions early now. But it was important for us to have the comeback win at Wake for lots of reasons. But proud of the offense. They've been one of the best offenses all year in the country. Defense found a way to find 5 stops in a row in the second half, which credit a few things. I think last year we struggled with Wake's offense early in the game. The first half, second half, we played much better. Same thing in this one. Jay and the guys made some adjustments at halftime, but I also think with the uniqueness of the Wake Forest offense, the longer you see it, the more you settle down and stay in your gaps and play with a lot more patience. And I think that happened in the second half. But it was also really important for our guys to come back and win a close game at the end. We hadn't really done that since we've been here. And we missed a close comeback at Florida State that I thought we should have won. We didn't finish at Virginia. I thought we could have won. And then this one, we came back and won. So that should really, really help us moving forward. I think Jeremy announced it last week, but Kyrian Johnson and Sam Howell were our 2 offensive players of the week. We call him Q, but Q stepping in and as a walk-on, and Brian Anderson not playing was a huge help for us and really saved the game. So the coaches felt like he definitely deserved credit, and Sam's playing as well as any quarterback in the country. Chaz Surratt was the defensive player of the game, was all over the place, and Obi was our special teams player of the week. We've got we would have had huge crowds this year, and there have been a lot of disappointments for a lot of us in our lives with the pandemic. But one for sure is we would have sold out for Syracuse, and then what a crowd we would have had for Virginia Tech and for NC State and for Wake Forest. And then this weekend, this Friday, would have been maybe the best crowd in our school history. So that's a shame that our fans haven't been able to enjoy the games in person, and our players, especially the seniors, haven't been able to enjoy the atmosphere in Kenan. But we understand. Then this weekend we've got Notre Dame, number 2 in the country, national game. We wanted to be relevant again. We're ranked. And Notre Dame's number 2 in the country, national TV game. We've got a great slot with Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, and Maria Taylor coming in. So it is a relevant game. And Brian Kelly and I coached in an all-star game in 2003 out in Hawaii when he was actually the head coach at Grand Valley State. He was the coach of the year. And we've been really good friends ever since. I'm so proud for him. This may be his best team, because they're very balanced. They do everything pretty well. Just checking a few things for them as they're number 1 in the league in total defense. So at a year where we're saying a lot of people missed defense and we didn't have spring practice, so that hurt us, and the offenses are ahead of the defense. Well, Notre Dame didn't get that memo because they're giving up 85 yards rushing a game. So they're so good on defense. But interestingly enough, we're 7th in our league on defense, and we're 6th against the run in our league. And we can improve so much, but it just shows you that our league has struggled some on defense as we look at where we are. We're total offense. We're number 1 in the ACC, and Notre Dame's number 3. But more uniquely, both Notre Dame and us have rushed for 233.5 yards per game. I don't think I've ever seen a stat that's that's like that. But should be a fun game. Should be a great game. I know our guys are really looking forward to it. And Notre Dame is national. It gives us a chance to see where we fit and to see if we can start being in some conversations with. We've got the national game with Notre Dame. We've got the more local in-state game with Western Carolina. Then we've got another national game with Miami. So we've got 2 of the next 3 weeks to kind of see where we are. One positive thing that happened yesterday is that Miles Murphy's cast was taken off. So he does have use of some hands now. So when you're saying, Miles, wrap up, and he's got a club, it's kind of hard for him to look at you and say, come on, man, I can't wrap up. I don't have a hand. So that should help. So in closing for me, last week, we're in the midst of finals. So we practiced Monday, we practiced Tuesday, we took off Wednesday for finals, we practiced Thursday, and then we took off Friday and Saturday for finals. We practiced yesterday afternoon. And then today, every player on our team, I think, has got finals. And then we'll go back and try to practice tomorrow. So this week will be a little bit more like the routine of the Duke week, where the NCAA took the practice day away on Tuesday. Well, with a Friday game, finals are taking this practice day away. So it'll be more like that routine that we normally would have had. And then Thursday will be our normal Friday before a ball game. So the guys will not have Thanksgiving. They'll just have a Friday night, Thursday night meal for a Friday game, which is normally like a Friday night meal. And then they'll be able to have their Thanksgiving on Saturday. Questions?
Thanks, Coach. If you have a question, please use the raise hand function. Today, we will begin with Greg Barnes. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Mack, good morning. You've talked a good bit about the struggles of not having a spring practice and being limited somewhat in the summer. I know the original schedule had you penciled in for top 25 matchups against Central Florida and Auburn. The new schedule obviously kind of flipped that around to where you have these big games later in the year. Given everything that's transpired, is the schedule set up the way you wanted to be able to have this opportunity late?
Greg, I think it's better than it would have been early. Who knows? But I wish we had been able to play Charlotte. That would have really helped us for so many different reasons. And then we would have been on schedule. We would have already had 9 games played at a time where I think I saw 87 games have been canceled or postponed. So you hold your breath every time those tests come back, the virus test, to see whether your guys are going to be able to play or your coaches are going to be able to play or not. But I do feel like that the schedule has worked out probably about as well as we could. It's unique for us that we may be the only team that has a 3-game series with Notre Dame. We play them in Chapel Hill this year, we play them in South Bend next year, and then we actually play them in Chapel Hill the next year. So weirdly enough, Florida State was on our schedule once for 7 years, and now we play them 2 years in a row because we play them in Chapel Hill next year. And Notre Dame, we had a 2-game series with. It was added with the pandemic schedule. So scheduling's been a little bit crazy, but I do think it's worked out fine.
And last year, this team obviously played a top team in Clemson, but that was really 5 games in and didn't really know what this team was about. Now we have an idea of what this team is and kind of what your culture is. How big of an opportunity is this? You talked about this being a chance to prove how relevant this team can be nationally, but how are you approaching kind of the importance of this game, not just in the ACC race, but in kind of where this team wants to get to?
Greg, I'm really approaching it just to look at it and see where we are nationally. We know where Notre Dame is. They're one of the best teams in the country. They're probably a playoff team right now. People would project they'll definitely be in the ACC championship game. They've dominated most of the teams they've played. So everybody knows where Notre Dame is. Nobody knows where we are. We're up and we're down, and Can we run the ball against a team that's given up 85 yards? Can we be balanced? Can we move the ball against the number 5 defense in the country? Can we stop them at all? Because we've been so inconsistent on offense. And Ian Book's 28-3. He's thrown 11 touchdown passes, just 1 interception. He's run for 6 touchdowns, which we have not done very well against running quarterbacks when he has the ability to take it down and run. And defensively, they're really, really good. And I think they're giving up 25% on 3rd down. So more than anything else, I've told the guys this is a great opportunity for us early in the transition to rebuilding our program to see where we are. But I've also told them, you want to be relevant, you want to be national, you are. So everybody in the country is going to watch you play on Saturday. So this is an opportunity for you to show them that we are making progress. Thank you.
Our next question comes from CL Brown.
Hi, Mack. What advantages, if any, do you see from a week like this where it's and the pandemic adding into it? There's not a lot of kids on campus who are telling players every class and every walk across campus how big the game is, and there's not going to be that kind of a build up to this game. It seems like it'll be more, your players will be able more just to kind of focus in on the actual game itself as opposed to the hoopla.
Yeah, CL, if we could get them off social media, that would really help. But they're not going to get off social media. So they're going to know how big the game is. They're going to be told all week how big the game is. And that's okay. It is big. So they need to understand that. That's one thing that we put up with at Texas. Everybody wanted to beat Texas. Everybody wants to beat Notre Dame. It's funny, the Texas, when you'd play Texas Tech, they'd say, this is the game of the year. Texas players say, nope, it's the next game for us. And for Notre Dame, everybody gets excited about playing Notre Dame. So that's one of the things that they have to do because they're an established national program, and we're not there yet. That's where we want to be. I do feel like the other thing, though, that did help with the week off, and I'm sure Notre Dame feels the same way. We started practice August 6th, and this would have been the last game of the year for us. We would have played NC State on Friday if the pandemic had not come, and our season would have been over. And then you start looking at bowl games. And now we got 2 more weeks. So we started earlier and we're finishing much later. So you've got to give these players all across the country and assistant coaches especially credit for not only handling the pandemic, being able to play these games, but the brutal schedule that they've had. And now with the excitement of the Notre Dame game, our guys have very difficult finals on Zoom. So, and then we'll have 2 weeks on campus, CL, without any students here. So the next 2 ball games, it'll just be us. Everybody else will be gone home. So it's really, really a different time for our players.
And with the announcement Jerry made about McMichael being back and the possibility anyway of Storm at least returning to practice and being up for game time, how will that affect the secondary, especially given the end of Wake Forest? We saw you guys use the younger guys like Conley and Grimes in the rotation.
Right. We're just looking at all of this. One thing for me, being on your side of this for 5 years and being over here, and the media always wonder why don't they just tell us who's healthy? Man, don't say it's a game time decision. Don't say we're going to watch them during the week. It's really true. I mean, so number one, you watch a guy like Storm during the week, and then he hasn't played in so long. Will he be ready to play if he can practice all week? And how much can you use him? So all those things are a factor as you get in there. So Dre Bly and Jay Bateman for 2 years have had to shuffle guys in and out of the secondary, and they'll be trying to figure it out again this week because Notre Dame's got such big receivers. I mean, they're huge. They're all the size of tight ends, but they can run.
Thanks,
Thank you, CL.
All right, let's go over to David Teal.
Mack, you mentioned earlier the hold your breath moments every week awaiting test results. I'm guessing that the biggest hold your breath moment is Saturday morning. Does the ACC need to change its testing timing so that the road team knows who has tested positive before getting on that airplane?
David, it's way beyond my knowledge or ability to speculate, because I think what they feel like is you have to have a test result that's within a certain amount of time from the game to make sure that everyone is safe to play in the game. And that's the reason they do it. It's even difficult. First time I realized we're playing at Boston College, and we didn't get our test scores till we got up there. And if someone had a positive, they would have had to get in a car service or somebody, or one of our staff members who had a positive, and drive them back home. They couldn't get on the plane to come home. So it is difficult. It's difficult to understand. You know, there's so many things in this pandemic that we still don't understand. How do you get a false positive? When you get a false positive, it's so unfair to go public and say somebody's got a positive, and then 2 days later, nope, we've had 2 negatives, so it was a false positive. And now anybody that has an allergy or a sneeze or a bad cold, we don't let them practice. And it's then you have to run and test them again, and see does he have a headache, does he have a sore throat, or does he have the virus? So it's a very, very different time, and I think that you go back and look at it at the first of the year. If we'd known then what we know now about a lot of things, would we have changed some things? Should teams have to forfeit that aren't able to play? There's just so many different things. If you don't play and you're missing a TV opportunity, that takes money out of the league for the athletics directors, and obviously they need the money. And we're getting to a point now where we can't make up some of these games. They're not going to be able to be postponed. They're going to have to be canceled. So I don't know. I've asked so many questions about the pandemic, and after you've got a positive, how many days is there where you don't have to test again? And sometimes they've told me if you got a positive the first time and you keep testing, you're going to have more positives. So if a guy doesn't have the virus again, but he had a positive early, and you're 150 days later and he has another positive, but it's from the first test. There's just so many questions, David. I don't know. And what I will say that Dr. Sioka, Mario Sioka, and Luke Ross, our trainer and our doctor, have done a phenomenal job with these kids. And every day I have somebody come to me and they tell me right before practice, hey, somebody's got a sore throat, so they're not going to be there today. And I'll also say the coaches, I've just told them, I don't want to hear you griping. I don't want to hear that somebody's out. It's going to happen this year, worse than normal. So if somebody's not out there, figure it out and just play them. And because of that, Jay Bateman's he's played Don Chapman at corner some, along with safety. I look up and he's got Jaquarius Conley playing corner. Just because we don't know who's going to be there, and so David, we'll get test scores back, or we'll get test results back tonight. I call them test scores. I guess that's what it is for me. Then we'll get them back after Wednesday's practice, and then we'll get them probably Thursday night or Friday morning. If you're at home, sometimes we get ours Thursday night at like 10 o'clock. And the trainer just texts me and he says all negatives, and that's the happiest day of my week when we do that. And if there is I could get a text on Thursday night that says Jay Bateman is positive, and then he can't coach the next morning, and we've got to figure out what to do. And then at the same time, David, the next day after the game, they could retest him and say, no, it was a false positive. Sorry, we got a bad test result back. So it's just the inconsistency of routine is really been difficult for everybody.
And then more to the point, on Friday, I've seen comparisons between Isaiah Simmons and Kyle Hamilton. You competed against Simmons last season. Does Hamilton on tape remind you of him?
Yes, that he's really, really good. That's he can make plays all over the field, and that's when we saw Simmons last year, it was just a wow effect, because it didn't matter where he was, didn't matter if you ran to him or away from him, he was going to be around it and make plays. And same thing, I think they're very comparable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question comes from Brennan Marks.
Morning, Mac. Thanks for doing this. You had mentioned obviously Ian Book and sort of the spectacular season he's been having. Also, Notre Dame's overall defense, one of the best in the country. Right now, would you say that your greater concern with the Irish is on the offensive or the defensive side of the ball? Are you more worried about having to contain Ian, or about trying to see if your offense can compete against that caliber of defense?
Yes. I'm concerned about both. Defensively, they're by far the best team we've played. Offensively, and can run with it. They're leading the league in time of possession. So not only do they pound you, and we have not been great against the run. So they're going to line up and just run it right at us, and it's a huge challenge for our guys. And again, in the 2 games that we've lost, we didn't run the ball very well. It's the only 2 games this year that we have not beat the other team in rushing yards. Only had 93 yards, 93, I think, against Virginia. So they're obviously going to look at those 2 games and try to make us throw it. And then you've got to run it well enough to protect, because you got Hamilton, you got Hayes, you got Jeremiah, number 6, who's a great linebacker that I can't pronounce his name yet. I just know he's really good. So, but they're very well coached. Their coach, Coach Clark, came from the Wake Forest staff, so I'm sure they just did a lot during the week and during the year with them. So it'll be a real challenge for us.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Andrew Jones, please.
Hey, Coach, you've said in the past, I guess last year, the week of the Clemson game, that you don't want your guys, you have to guard against them playing the game on Tuesday and Wednesday during the week. You have another one of those games this week. So how are you as a staff kind of working to guard against those guys being too amped up and kind of playing that game emotionally before the game even gets
It's a great point, especially with 2 weeks to prepare. One of the things that you have to do to get better as a program is you have to practice hard every day. And we didn't do that last year. We had some real highs and real lows, and I could kind of tell that we were going to struggle in a ball game because we didn't have interest in practice. I will say right now, and part of it is because we're developing more depth, that we are practicing hard every day. So I didn't see any difference in yesterday than I did Tuesday before Wake Forest. So I do think part of it's depth. They want to play. Part of it's we're playing more people, so they're excited about the opportunity to get to play, and they need to prepare and practice better. But I'm not seeing the highs and lows that we had in our first year.
Do you think that with final exams occurring so early and being last week, and I guess some are still going on, that maybe kind of helps a little bit because they have a lot of their emphasis personally away from football? So Notre Dame's on their mind 24/7?
Yeah, I don't, because it's a grind for them with finals. So, I mean, these guys have to study. We've had guys that missed practice last week because they had to study for finals. So it's just another 2020 disruption that you look at as you look at all the things that they're dealing with that they wouldn't normally deal with. And then you look at just things that are out there for us. We've got this game, we've got Western Carolina next week, then we've got Miami. And that will be on the 12th of December. They will not announce the bowl games until the 20th. We won't have any school. You don't know which bowl games you're going to. So do you send the players home for 5 days during the pandemic? Do you keep them here with no school and practice them, not knowing who you're going to play against or when you're going to play, when they're exhausted because they started August 6th. Andrew, there's just so many different questions now than we don't normally deal with. So we're trying to figure all that out now.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Ross Martin.
Hey, Mack, I was wondering if you saw what happened with Florida State and Clemson and the cancellation of that game, if you had any thoughts on that situation.
Ross, I saw it like everybody else, and it's David kind of alluded to it earlier. It's been a fear all year that you would get to a game. I was crushed when and the players on Thursday when we were told we couldn't play Charlotte. So I can't imagine getting ready to go down for a pregame meal and being told we're not going to play when you're on the road and having to go home. So I don't know all the details. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I'm not sure anybody knows for sure in the conversations, but it's a scary one. And it shows, I told the players at yesterday's meeting, you are blessed if you play a game. So don't take any of them for granted, but let's hope we get to play Friday. We're planning on playing Friday, but don't sit, it's not guaranteed at all. So, and the virus is obviously amped up more and a bigger spike across the country than it's probably been, it sounds like. But I don't know, Ross. I think it's, again, as I talked to David about it, I bet if we knew back in the summer when we weren't even sure we were going to play, if we knew all this was going to happen and how it was going to happen, there probably would have been some different things put into place. But who knows? We didn't even know we were going to play. And who would have ever think that this would happen? So, you know, it's just, it's very, very unfortunate for everybody involved and especially the kids.
Great, thank you. And quickly, you know, looking at the Wake Forest tape, what's the one thing that kind of concerns you about y'all's defense, you know, reviewing that tape and heading into this week?
Jay will be here in about 15 minutes. And if I address everything for he and Phil, then they'll be really disappointed that you don't get to ask them hard questions. So the biggest thing is, and I said it, I think right after the game, seems like 8 weeks ago, we had that game. I didn't think that we were in the right gap some in the first half. They, with their slow pace with the running back with their RPOs, we were probably too excited in some ways, and we got out of our gaps. We lost contain, and they bounced back out to the backside twice and had big plays. And then we had a crackback with a corner on the front side once, and he got inside too far, and they bounced out for another big play. And in the second half, I thought we defended the run, and we were a lot more sound in our gap control and our leverage in the second half than we were the first half. When we started slowing the run down, it put them in second long and third long situations, and that's not their deal. They're going to get that 4 to 6 yards on first down. They're going to make their third downs because they're third and short. But when we put them in third and long and fourth and long, we did much, much better the second half. Probably the only disappointing play that just really jumps out to me was the 3rd and 18. I mean, on the last drive, we can't do that. I mean, we're playing great for 5 straight series. It's 3rd down and 18 right after a sack, and we let them hit one for 46 yards and have some chance to get back in the game. So we've still got some things that we've got to do. And the other point that Jay will talk to you about is the communication. If you look at who we lost last year, we lost 5 good players on defense. More, and we didn't lose but 1 on offense. We lost Charlie Heck. But on defense, you lost Crawford. That's been hard to replace because he was such a big body inside. You lost Strobridge, who was a really good pass rusher and still playing with Miami. You lost Dominic Ross, who was a very good pass rusher and had some length. You lost Miles Dorn, who was the older safety in the middle that had played a lot. He's still playing. And then this year you lose Miles Wolford. So we've got a lot of people that are young in the secondary, especially at safety, and some of them have been hurt, and that's hurt our communication. So we've just had some people wide open, and people say, well, how can you do that, man? Well, they're not communicating well. So I would think be more fundamentally sound earlier in the game up front, tackle better, which is something you do every week, and communicate better in the back end.
All right. I appreciate your third.
Thanks. And then we'll let Jay won't have to come today.
All right, we'll close with Coach Brown with our last question from Aaron Beard.
Hey, Mack, I wanted to back up to something from the Wake Forest game. It's probably not ideal for you as you're going through the days after a game to hear a team suddenly having to not play because of a combination of positive tests and contact tracing quarantines. I know some of it was injury related, but I'm curious kind of what was your thinking when you heard that? I don't know if you've had that happen before this year where somebody you played had a problem and couldn't play the next week that you had to sort of respond to, I guess.
Yeah. Aaron, are you available this week? Are you touch and go through the week? Do we have to watch you in game time decision? Or you look like you're moving around better. So
Yeah, moving around.
All right, we have got it. It's another great question, and one of those things you haven't had before. After the game, when I heard that they had a positive on Monday, all we can do is check our test results, and they were all negative. So you would just say, just praise the Lord when it happens, because that's about all you can do. And I do think contact tracing has been one of the, maybe even a bigger issue than just the fact that you've got the virus. So we have gone over repeatedly for our players what that means. You have to keep your distance. You have to keep your mask on. And when the health department asks you if you're the roommate of a positive, or if you're in the same position room with a positive, they're going to ask you the questions of, have you been around him for more than 15 minutes? Have you had your mask off? Have you, were you in the car without a mask? Do you eat next to him? Do you sit and watch TV in your house or your dorm room with a guy without a mask? And you have to be able to say no. Number one, you got to be honest, because you could be affecting your entire team. But number two, you've got to be in a position where if you want to play, you've got to say no. I had my mask on at all times, and so we've really worked hard at trying to make sure that the contact tracing isn't going to get somebody because somebody else had a positive. And it's still strange, but the contact tracing means you're out a minimum of 14 days. In the ACC, if you get the virus, you get 10 days, and then you have to go through the heart check procedures. But actually being a contact could take you more time to get back than having a positive, which is really, again, very different.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Aaron.
Coach, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. I'll see you Wednesday.
Morning.
Welcome, Coach. Thanks for joining us. Our first question will come from Gregory Hall.
I can't hear you. I can see somebody talking, but I can't hear anything.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear anybody.
Yeah. All right. All right. Our first question will come from Gregory Hall. Go ahead, Gregory.
Hey, Phil, I asked Michael Carter yesterday what the focus should be for the offense these final weeks and what they need to improve on. And he said just consistency. How can you guys accomplish that?
Well, I think you look at your body of work from the previous game, and we really look at it from a statistical standpoint, evaluation standpoint from the whole season, just to see, every week where it is you need to get better from an offensive standpoint. And then it becomes more specific when you plug it into things that they're doing well on defense. So I think we've got to continue to try to maintain consistency on third down and in the red zone. And we have to be consistent on first down, because Notre Dame does a really good job of getting you behind the chains, and they're elite on third down. And so that's where they want to live. They want to live on third down with you. And so it'll be a challenge on Saturday to stay out of it.
And that kind of leads into my question about what have you seen out of Notre Dame on film? This looks like probably one of the best defense you'll see all season.
There's no question. I mean, this will be the most physical unit we've seen. They're really good up front there. I think they're giving up about 80 yards a game rushing. Clemson, who we all know is very, very talented, rushed the ball for 34 yards with, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the country. And so it's going to be a challenge here to, one, physically compete with, their front on the line of scrimmage. Our guys are looking forward to it. I think the second level, the linebackers, 33 and 40, do a phenomenal job of defending the run game. They're really gap sound. They're not out of position. They squeeze the box. And 6 and 14 are elite tacklers. I mean, they're 6 and 14 are future NFL players. They split them. Very rarely will you ever see 14 and 6 on the same side of the field. I wouldn't put them on the same side either. Both of them basically, man, they're part of the jungle and they handle it very, very well, and they're great tacklers. And so they're going to try to spill everything to those two guys and let them clean up the run game.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, our next question comes from Melissa Ray.
Yeah, Coach, what are the pros and cons of coming off a bye week? More time to prepare, obviously, but maybe not bringing in that momentum if you were to have had a game this past weekend.
Bye weeks are funny if they time up well. I love them. If you've got somebody or some people that you want to heal up, then you love bye weeks because maybe you're a little bit healthier going into that game 2 weeks from now. I am always the concern, I guess, on the other end of it would be when you're playing good football and you're in a rhythm. And I talked so much early on in the season. We went 6 weeks before we played the opener, and then we went 3 weeks before we played game 2. And it was just so hard. Now, it's harder in the beginning of the year, but it was so hard just to get into a rhythm. And I would love to have played those first 2 games again now, that we're kind of where we want to be offensively. But I always worry about sometimes just having too much time off. In this particular case, it's a little bit more unique because Notre Dame has 2 weeks off also. So we need the 2 weeks to get ready because they have 2 weeks to get ready. And I think this time of the year, late in the year, we'll obviously be healthier going into the Notre Dame game than we would have if we had played last Saturday. So it's been good for us.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's go over to Andrew Jones.
Coach, when players are gearing up for a game like this, obviously they get very excited. But as a coach, what kind of drives you more? Is the excitement of the opportunity that you guys have or the intrigue in what your group might do against a defense like Notre Dame's?
It really comes down to I hate to downplay any game, but every game after you play it is either a win or a loss. You know what I mean? It has the same value. I think when you have a team like Notre Dame, though, that is so good at what they do, and we work so hard to be good at what we do, it's fun. It's exciting to prepare for and get ready for and try to compete against somebody that does what they do at such a high level. And so this is an opportunity for us to see if we can do it against what I think right now is going to probably be the most, from top to bottom, the most physical defense that we'll see this year. And, overall, statistically, the best defense we'll see this year. So it's that part of it is exciting. I think really we got to focus on North Carolina this week and do what we do. And then we've got to be willing to bring it physically on Friday night.
Going back to their run defense, what element of your group's run blocking has improved the most since the opener?
We finished better. We're always talking about finishing. I always evaluate. First thing I look at when I watch the film, when I'm watching the O-line, is just to see how well we finished. And typically when we have explosive runs and I always say when you block well enough to beat the line of scrimmage with the running backs, you don't want to have to coach the running backs on that side of the field. At that point, it becomes about their ability and their talent. But you can help explosives. You can help promote more explosives in the run game when you do a good job blocking at the second level. And that will be absolutely paramount against Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame brings the second level to you. So we're going to see linebackers closer to the line of scrimmage in this game than we've seen all year. And, that in itself will be more of a physical challenge for us than we've seen in recent weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our next question comes from Ross Martin.
Hey, Coach. I was wondering if you do get Bo Krause, who's practicing this week, how that kind of figures in changing your wide receiver rotation and how that impacts your offense in general.
Well, first I would say, Ross, that Emory Simmons and Joffrey Brown have both established themselves as receivers in the, in the system now, in the offense this year. So whether it's De'Ami Brown or Joffrey Brown or Emory Simmons, if Bo is back and he is practicing, he did a nice job yesterday. So if he is back and he's able to go, then we move him into the rotation, and we go through this the same normal 4 wide receiver rotation that we're used to. We've kind of had to do without him in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So if he's able to play, it'll be because he's able to play, and we'll work him into the rotation like we did in the first half of the season.
Great. And yesterday, Sam was asked about something that stood out about what he's done the last couple of weeks. He mentioned that you came up to him and said that his fourth quarter numbers are like the best in college football or one of the best ever. What do you think makes Sam such a effective and dynamic player in the fourth quarter? Is it the it factor? Is it, and what is it that you see from him that makes him so effective in the fourth?
Truthfully, I think it's 2 things. I think poise has a lot to do with, adverse scenarios in the game of football. So when adversity is the highest, I think it's when Sam is able to maintain the same calm that he had in the midway through the second quarter. I mean, he really doesn't change, and he's not a flappable kid. He doesn't get rattled. So that's one. And then the other thing is just, I think it's why any great quarterback is good in the fourth quarter. They're so dang competitive. They can't accept losing. They can't accept not getting the first down. They can't accept not completing the pass. They can't accept not finishing the drive. And, Sam is as competitive as any quarterback I've ever coached. And I would say that about a number of our players. And I just think that lends to how competitive and how hard we play in the fourth quarter. And that has a lot to do with our fourth quarter production.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to CL Brown.
I feel after the Wake Forest game, Mack told us that he talked some with Sam and I wanted to get your perspective on, when all is said and done at Carolina for Sam, how do you think his legacy will be written?
So you're going to think I'm ducking this question, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not thinking about Sam Howell's legacy until he's done playing here. It's no different than approaching the season. I don't want to talk about the ACC championship game or the national championship game or being 11-0. I just want to talk about the next game. If you take care of that day's practice and that week's practice and that game, then the season and the championships and the legacy and all that stuff takes care of itself. So the word legacy and Sam Howell hasn't entered my mind really. I want to make sure he plays a good game on Saturday. And if he does that, it'll add to whatever y'all decide his legacy will be when he's finished.
Okay. Well, that kind of submarined my follow question, but so games like Notre Dame, games like a number 2 team coming in,
sure,
generally go into constructing legacies. And you mentioned about his fourth quarter poise and everything. How is it, or why do you think Sam has been so kind of level-headed in terms of something as how he approaches a big game like this and Clemson last year and as a freshman? Where do you think that kind of fortitude comes from a player so young?
I think that's 2 things also. I think one, it's Sam's demeanor. I've coached other quarterbacks that would react to this game much differently. They reacted to adversity situations differently. Some of them were positive in their own right, but that's just how he is and who he is. And he's that way 24/7. You guys interview him, you talk to him, you know what his demeanor is like, and it doesn't really change when he's on the field. The second thing I would say is, we always talk to our guys about we want to be simple on offense, and if you're knowledgeable about what we're doing and you don't have to sit and think about what your job is and things aren't overly intricate, you can play fast and you can play instinctive. And I think Sam has an incredible grasp of our offense. He has an incredible grasp of what teams are doing defensively. He does an excellent job during the week, and in this case, during the last 2 weeks, of mentally preparing for our opponent, in this case, Notre Dame. So really, my job ends on Friday. I mean, I just try to call a few plays and get out of the way on Saturday. The coaches, the staff's job is to prepare these guys Monday through Friday and then let them loose on Saturday. Now, in this case, we're kicking off 3:30 on Friday. So we bumped everything back, and I really need to have Sam ready to roll by Thursday evening, and then I think a big part of the knowledge that he has about what the defense is doing, about what we want to accomplish on offense, lends to him having great confidence. And when you play with confidence, you're able to play without thinking, and you play fast. And I think you can play aggressive. And that's really, to me, probably the two biggest reasons why Sam has been consistent and successful.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll close with Coach Longo with a final question from Greg Barnes.
Good morning, Phil. Was just hoping you could speak to Kyrian Johnson's contributions, not just in the Wake Forest game, but for this team this season.
Q has, he's the epitome of the walk-on that, we all describe. When you talk to walk-ons, when you recruit walk-ons, when they come in, they're all, it's explained to them all, they're not going to get the same opportunity that a scholarship athlete may get from a rep standpoint, especially in season, because you just don't have enough of them. And I think it's understood when you're a walk-on, the odds of you breaking the lineup and getting into the mix is much more difficult than that of a scholarship player. And I think that's true anywhere. So, what's the dream for a walk-on? To get on a roster, to get an opportunity. They're paying their own way, so they're doing it because they love it. And they get onto a roster and they make enough noise in practice. They do enough good things right at their position. They show that physically they belong. In Q's case, that's how we first got noticed. He was very, very physical in inside run drills and in one-on-one full contact drills. And, we said at the very least, Q may not fit the arm reach and the height and the weight requirements and all that you might recruit, but he was really, really good physically. So that got Coach Cyril's attention early on, and of course he brought it to our attention, and we all noticed Q. And so as things went on, and we went through some center issues this year. We lost Ty Murray early on, and that gave Q more reps, and he did a great job with those reps. And so he's a great example of a walk-on who has taken a very, very small opportunity and done a lot with it and expanded his role on this team to the point where he was the starting center for a 59-point output last week in a game and really saved our tail. And we gave Sam Howell the player of the week, but I asked our staff if they had any objection to giving Q half of that award, and of course they didn't. And so Sam Howell and Q Johnson were the players of the week for us last week, and he just did a great job of earning it. And he did what we hope all walk-ons would do when they finally get an opportunity, and that's produce. The best thing I told you this last week, the best thing I can say about Q the last 3 weeks in practice and in the game is I never noticed an issue at center. There weren't bad snaps and we weren't missing blocks or blowing protections or calls. I just never noticed them, which is an absolute compliment to a center because those are guys you don't want to notice. So I can't say enough about the job he's done just getting himself into the mix here and because of his performance in the last game.
Thank you.
Coach Longo, thanks for your time today.
Yes, sir. You guys have a great week. Enjoy the game.
Jay was here and then he disappeared. So I'm sure he'll be back in a minute.
Hey, welcome, Coach. Thanks for joining us today. Our first question comes from Aaron Beard.
AJ, I know football as a whole is a physical game, but is there any additional concern about playing a team like Notre Dame that can be as physical as they are on your defense?
So I would agree with you. They are very physical. I think their O-line is a elite unit. But I mean, I think our kids like playing football and like the physical nature of it. So I think, I don't think we're like concerned. I think, they know it's going to be a huge challenge.
Is there anything different, I guess, then in that regard with what they do and how they can maybe physically, beat up on teams versus just normal football, the physical?
Yeah, I mean, they are really good at running the football and blocking you. And so I think you've got to commit a lot of resources to stop the run. So I think that's where it's a little bit different. But, I have a ton of respect for them. I've defended them before, and, it's a real challenge. Yes, sir.
Our next question will come from Brendan Marks.
Morning, Jay. Thanks for taking the time. I was just asking, what is your sort of scouting report on Ian Book? How does he differ from some of the other scrambling quarterbacks you guys have faced? What are the biggest things that make him so dangerous?
I think he's a really complete football player. I think he throws it really well. I think he runs it really well. Everybody I've talked to that's played him, the first thing they say, they talk about how great the O-line is. They talk about how great the tight ends are. The first thing they say is how athletic they thought the quarterback was playing them than they thought before. So I think he's a really athletic kid. He's really fast. I don't think he gets fooled much. So I think it's a real challenge. I think he's a tremendous football player.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next question comes from Gregory Hall.
Hey, Jay, I was just curious what you guys focused on over the off week and what you wanted to improve on.
I think we started working on Notre Dame. Obviously, there were some issues from the last game we had to address that I'm sure Notre Dame's going to put in their game plan. So we kind of worked on some of the problems we had from Wake Forest, and then really got, Notre Dame presents a lot of issues. So I'm glad we had a bye week to kind of go through it all and try to handle as much as we could.
And then watching Notre Dame on film, who has stood out to you?
How much time we got? We talked about the quarterback. I think he's a tremendous player. I think the tight ends are awesome. They play three of them. They're in two tight ends a lot. I think really good. And I think the O-line has got, I don't know how it's like, I'm sure that Greg Barnes probably knows how the stat, there's like a ridiculous amount of starts that the O-line has. I think they're a really good unit. So, I wish I could say man, we can attack this guy, but I think, we kind of feel like, it's all hands on deck to defend them.
Great. Thank you.
We'll move over to Andrew Jones.
Hey, Coach, very quickly go back to the Wake Forest game for a moment. You put a lot of the freshmen on the field, including Kevin Hester got some reps late when you guys kind of flipped the switch a little bit on defense. How did Tony Grimes and Jaquarius and Miles Murphy and those guys look during that stretch?
Tony, I thought played tremendous. And really when we put Tony in, we kind of made a decision to play a little bit different coverage concept. And we knew he was going to be in man coverage a lot. And I thought he played really well. Jaquarius went in and that was part of the game plan too, was that we felt like getting a 5th DB in was going to help us. Miles Murphy, I think, has really improved really the last 3 or 4 weeks. And the most exciting thing for me now is he's finally got the club off. So he can use his hands. And I think that will help a lot. But they all played really well. And I think you're going to continue to see them play more and more, these next 3 weeks.
Given what you guys have had to deal with shuffling dudes around in the secondary the last month or so, how big is it getting Kyler back this week and the possibility of getting Storm back as well?
There's a reason they were starting, right? And so, we think they were, we kind of thought going in they were really good players, and I think we played really well when those two kids were playing. So it means a lot. That doesn't mean that that corner has been the issue, because it hasn't. But those two help. When you can go out and play man, it solves some issues for you. And I think Kyler's looked really well, and I think Storm's really improving. So we'll see.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Ross Martin.
All right, Jay, I got a few for you here. Kind of building off that, I mean, how do you kind of see the cornerback and defensive back rotation going with potentially getting Kyler and Storm back and what you've seen out of Grimes and Ladace and Hollins and all these guys? I mean, how do you see that breaking down now with the 2 new players back?
So like, I'm not of the opinion that you lose your position from as a starter or playing a lot from injury, you know? So I think when those kids that had kind of proven to us when everybody was healthy that they were the best ones, you know, when those kids come back, you know, I think they deserve the opportunity to compete for, you know, to start. And once they kind of knock the cobwebs off, you know, so I kind of feel like Kyler has really, I mean, we probably could have played him last week if we had to. You know, obviously the bye weeks really helped him as far as his health goes. So I mean, I feel like he's definitely going to play. I think Storm will be a matter of, you know, how he improves these next 3 or 4 days. But you know, it's kind of like we've been doing. We're going to play a lot of them. You know, there's not a whole lot of difference. You know, so you know, play the ones that are healthiest, and Ross, you know, like we play the ones that practice the best. You know, that's kind of been part of our problem. I think is, you know, is like a guy gets a starting job and then just, you know, doesn't practice as well. So now we're in a situation where, hey, if you practice best, you're going to play, and I think that's going to be kind of our message to that group.
What stood out the most on the Wake Forest tape? Obviously, the defense didn't probably play up to your expectations. I mean, what was the issue? What stood out?
You know, I didn't think in the first half we did a very good job in the run. Like, you know, I thought our front was really good all game. It was more like, you know, some of they did some different things from the perimeter blocking us that we hadn't seen as much, and we didn't do a very good job of handling that at secondary. I think that was the biggest. I think they had 150 yards rushing at halftime and ended with 177. So I felt like we kind of got that fixed at halftime. We changed the way we were playing a couple different fits at halftime, which I think helped us. The biggest thing, you know, I didn't think I had a very good third down plan, you know, and we went into halftime and said, all right, we're scrapping it. We're going back to these calls. And I think that really helped us. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but at halftime, the third down percentage was awful. You know, we had got them into, you know, 3 or 4, you know, third and kind of, you know, 5, 6, 7 pluses and hadn't gotten off the field. And I think that's really where we had a bunch of issues. You know, on offense as good as Wake Forest, if you get them in a third and long, you got to get off the field. And we didn't. And I thought in the second half, you know, we tweaked a little bit what we were doing. I thought we played a lot better in the third downs. And I think ultimately that's what kind of got the game going back in our direction.
And quickly, was there a reason why Desmond Evans didn't play on against Wake?
Yeah, kind of we talked about Ross. Like, you know, I didn't think Des had a really good week of practice.
Yeah.
And I think he's had, you know, a tremendous 2 weeks of practice. And here's the thing, like with some of these young freshmen, like we don't think they're going to be good players, Ross. We think they're going to be great players. And so like I'm demanding of them, right, that they earn their playing time, right? Because that's going to pay off for us a year from now and 2 years from now. And I think Des has practiced tremendous this week. And if he continues to practice like he's practiced, he's going to play a bunch. But you know, the standard is that you come out to work every day and you're locked in and you're focused and you do your job. And when you do that, you play more. And I think when that's standard we need to kind of adhere to right now.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Greg Barnes.
Good morning, Jay. I hope you're doing well. This may be a question better suited for the off season, so just let me know if so. But I know last year you were down a lot of guys in the secondary, and one of the conversation points was not having your key guys back there really affected what you could do up front. And I know you've had some injuries back there this year. Could you explain that a little bit and how you maybe having some guys out in the secondary forces your hand up front?
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, the structure of your front and the different blitzes and pressures you want to run, you know, all that entails the secondary handling the adjustments. And so we don't have a lot of bank reps at times with some of that stuff. And so, you know, you're not comfortable calling it because you're not sure if we get a shift or a motion or a formation that we haven't seen a bunch of, that their ability to handle it, right? And so that limits your defense a little bit. But, you know, ultimately, you got to line up and you got to whip blocks and cover people. And when we've done that, we've played really well, and we have it. And I don't really want, you know, there's no excuse. We've got good enough players. We got to play better.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll close today with Art Chansky. Go ahead, Art.
Hey, hey, Coach. I imagine one of Notre Dame's goals is not to get into a shootout with Carolina, and that would mean controlling the ball and keeping Sam off the field. does that change your game plan in any way where you might do something different to try and get them off the field, like gambling or anything like that? If you, obviously that's their strategy.
Well, I mean, Art, I don't want to give away any secrets.
Oh, please do.
But yeah, I mean, we have certainly discussed. I mean, I told Phil after the game, I said, "Hey, Phil, if I knew you were going to score 59, I probably would have called the first half different." But you know, so yeah, I mean, we are more than you know, Brown and I and Phil and I have talked. We are more than ready to be prepared for them to try to control the clock, and you know, they have the ability to do it. So and they've done it against other people, of similar offenses, or close to it. I think they tried to do it against Clemson some, so I think we absolutely have to be prepared for that.
And can you tell us what that might mean?
I guess blitz everybody, Art.
Just an example of that.
Brian Kelly's going to listen to this, Art. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to outnumber the run game, right? And I think that's going to be a key fact in stopping the run.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.